we spend a lot of time talking about the cards. I think we need to move on because there are obviously other things involved in this. Now, one of the things that strikes me is inconsistency. In fact, Alex, I think maybe me and you were talking about this. Like, there is something bizarre to my mind that, you know, you can get disqualified supposedly in modern wrestling for slamming a guy's head into an exposed turnbuckle pad. Yet throwing them into the guardrail outside is would hurt just as much. It's just as much metal, if you like, but is never a DQ.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, are these inconsistencies?
Yeah, they're glaring inconsistencies, and they're also dangerous. Like this is an issue, right? It's another thing that needs to. All our wrestlers are insured now, and we have our public liability premium is the high. What's the word? Most people are covered for 2 million. We're covered for 5 million, which is, to my knowledge, is the biggest in the country because obviously I run arena shows from time to time with different promotions, and I need that. But we had an incident where one of our wrestlers went over the guardrail with a dive and kicked a girl in the face. Now, we had representatives from multiple TV channels, including BBC Three, at that show, and we had to say, no, it's part of the show. Now, it wasn't part of the show. Luckily, number one, our insurance would have covered it, right? But number two, it was the girlfriend of somebody I'd spoken to who I'd met on the forum, actually wanted to run a show, and he's a similar, you know, he's a really nice guy, and his girlfriend was really cool, the situation that took place and everything. But it was, for me, pretty horrific because it's not even from a legal perspective. What it's just from as one of the rules I teach my students is don't heckle someone in the audience unless they heckle you first, right? If somebody gives me, I mean, really, when I say heckle them, like I mean really, really rip into them, because you don't know if that person's been agoraphobic for 2 years and they've just left the house, and then you know. So it's the same with a wrestling show. If you go out and you get kicked in the face, that's full on. So I'm actually getting all our wrestlers to sign disclaimers to say, even though we are covered, that it's their responsibility should they go outside the parameter of the guardrails and injure a fan. They're going to. So it's us showing due diligence, because we need to say to the guys, listen, like I've to my knowledge never injured a fan, and I fought in the crowd a lot because I've got a promoter's brain. I'm also thinking, well, I don't want to, you know, I mean. And actually, it's funny I say that with some of the stuff that I know is going to happen tomorrow. But anyway, the point is that there needs to be this going into the guardrails is not only bad for the logic of wrestling, it's also really dangerous as well. It is really dangerous. I remember Tommy Boyd raising a point. If people remember this about the blood in wrestling being fake, and he said, "Oh, it's a makeup artist." Now he made a gimmick out of it, but his argument was, and it was a real strong argument. Would a massive company like WWE allow its wrestlers to not only bleed with the risk of HIV, but then go into the crowd and have blood flying? It can't be real blood. Yeah. Imagine that, if you know, and actually made me think. Well, I know it's not, but that is and we do have to think about that stuff. So I think the inconsistencies, it's not only from a logic standpoint, but some of them are from a health and safety standpoint as well. You know, we only get away. I've had multiple shows with balcony bumps. I've taken them myself. I've knocked people off them. The only reason we got away with it because it was wrestling. You know, there was a reason that I was blacklisted from York Hall, Bethnal Green. You know, like, so... And on
the subject of you know, like the guardrail and brawling on the outside and the danger to fans, another inconsistency that strikes me is the countdown. Chris, this is one that comes in, you know, into effect with referees, is that sometimes wrestlers will go and brawl through the crowd for a long time. You know, supposedly a 10 count, but the 10 count somehow lasts 10 minutes. You know, it's not a no count out match. I mean, how do we address that while still allowing matches to spill outside?
Well, it's very, again, the responsibility now comes down to the wrestlers and their ring craft and their positioning. You know, as a referee, you can only do so much. You can say, get back in the ring so many times. So if you're going to go out to the crowd, which you probably will do somewhere to a certain degree, you have to be time conscious. So you work, again, this is about working with the referee and not just have him as an anonymous person. You work with the referee and say, okay, how's best? We want this spot in. How's best can we achieve this?
I could tell you, you know, as you're talking, like I could tell you instantly, just off the top of my head, right? Like literally, it just popped in my head as you were talking. If I was in a match, real big high-profile match, you've got to fight on the outside of the ring, right? And the story is these guys, the ring can't contain them. Yeah. Like I always like, if I'm doing a big main event, I like to lock up around all the corners. But you do it really intense. You'd be just going at it or whatever. In the process, your referee gets an elbow in the face. The ref's out, right? Yeah. Boom, he's down. Right, not a massive, but he's down enough that you spill to the outside and you just take it into the crowd. Now people run out. We need another referee. We need another referee, right? At that point, this referee's down. Then that's going to give you a good 30 to 60 seconds to fight around the crowd. Then that referee, I'm the referee now, right, get back in the ring, You're not listening to me? I'll get back in the ring and start counting. Boom. You just bought yourself a good 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
This is working with the
and
referee.
made an awesome story.
Yeah,
out
totally
of it,
working
like,
with the referee, because again, otherwise, as I said, if you're brawling out there and the poor old referee's trying to keep order, you're just making them look silly.
Watch that one get stolen.
No, but, I mean, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely right. Because again, it gives the credibility that, you know, if the referee was there, then he would try and keep order. Because again, if you take his order away from doing something like that, what authority has he got for the rest of the match?
That's the thing is, when wrestling's done properly, like, it should incorporate all you know, it's 50% physical, 50% mental, and unfortunately what's happened is it has become about 80% physical on a lot of the indies and stuff, and the mental side of it, like, let me tell you now, as a wrestling fan, you can't beat what I call the goosebump effect, right? The only people that can really get that goosebump effect are people who have, like us, have watched it and gone, man, that was good, and that's why Mick Foley can replicate it, because he's got that, right? And it's very hard. Okay, he did it with the Hell in a Cell, but the way it was done with the Hell in a Cell, he still used real logic, okay? Why did the Hell in a Cell bump work? Why? Because it was completely out of nowhere. It was what I call it the FUCK factor, right? Yeah. It's same as Jodie's leap to the top. Yeah. It's when I didn't see that coming. Yeah, exactly. That was at least 50% mental. If he'd have built up to, he's going to go, lost it, and that's exactly, and that's why. So I think what happens is, if we start realising that our brains are just as important, and you know, rather than show off to a promoter what clever stuff you can do, show off how cleverly you can fit that stuff into your match. I think we will be like we used to be. We were the envy of the world, wrestling-wise. People used to come here to learn from Japan and America. Wow, the Brits, and I think it can still be done, because there's you know, if we can ingrain this belief in. The reason it can be done is because we can say it's already been done, and we have the heritage there. We're not trying to do Mission Impossible here, like it's already, and I think it could be a really exciting time for everyone. I think we can
change the emphasis. The story is now more important than the pop.
Yeah.
We've gone full circle. Yeah. The story's got to be much better than the pop, because again, the pop lasts momentarily. Yeah. But the story lasts the whole match.
All right, we're just about out of time, but just before we go there, as a final question, I'm going to ask each of you the same thing. What one or two things, if you're the FWA, should the FWA be doing right now or in the coming months to try and make British wrestling more believable?
You know, as we discussed, you know, looking at the placement of the referee, you know, giving them a bit of protection to make them look better. And again, it's that continuous development of the characters, the wrestlers, the storylines, and even to a point where some pops are sacrificed. As I said, the story is what's important.
Chris?
I'm going to echo Phil's sentiments, to be honest, really. I mean, one is about the rules and maintaining that this is you know, as close as it can be to a legitimate sport in some ways. But again, like Phil said, with the characters and the gimmicks, and making sure that the wrestlers need to make a connection with the fans, because at the sacrifice, like Phil said, of the pops, you know, if it means cutting down on some of the high-flying stuff or whatever, but learning how to make a connection with the owner, so people will come and buy tickets to see you week after week after week, rather than just once a month to see a night of wrestling. They will come to see you as a wrestler, because they like what you do, they like you as a person, they like what you do in the ring or whatever. That's what needs to happen going forward, I think, is that the guys need to know how to make that connection with the fans.